When the king of pop married the daughter of the king of rock and roll back in 1994, the entire world thought it was a fairy tale romance. Two music royalty families united. A match made in heaven, right? Well, not according to one person who had a front row seat to the whole thing. After decades of keeping quiet, Priscilla Presley is finally revealing the truth about what she really thought of Michael Jackson. And let me tell you, it's absolutely explosive. At 80 years old, Elvis Presley's widow just dropped a bombshell memoir that's got everyone talking. And what she says about the king of pop will completely change how you see one of the most talked about celebrity marriages in history. Trust me, you're going to want to hear this. Before we dive into the shocking revelations, let's set the stage here. Priscilla Presley isn't just some random celebrity throwing shade from the sidelines. This is a woman who lived through one of the most intense relationships in entertainment history. She met Elvis when she was just 14 years old back in 1959, when he was stationed in Germany during his military service. He was 24 at the time. They eventually married when she was 21 in 1967, and together they had one daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, born in 1968. Now, Priscilla's life with Elvis wasn't exactly a walk in the park. She's been incredibly open about the challenges they faced. The marriage ended in 1972 when she left, though they remained close until his shocking death in 1977. Despite everything, she's always maintained that she loved Elvis deeply, and even now, she says she thinks about him every single day. The man was the love of her life, no question about it. But here's where things get interesting. Priscilla wrote her first memoir, Elvis and Me, back in 1985, and it became this groundbreaking look into what life was really like behind the gates of Graceland. That book revolutionized how people understood Elvis and their relationship. Fast forward 40 years, and she's just released a follow-up called Softly As I Leave You, Life After Elvis, which came out in September 2025. And this new book? It picks up right where the first one left off, diving deep into the life she built for herself after Elvis, including relationships, heartbreak, and most controversially, her brutally honest thoughts about her daughter's marriage to Michael Jackson. Okay, so let's talk about May 26, 1994. That's the date Lisa Marie Presley married Michael Jackson in a secret ceremony in the Dominican Republic. And here's what makes this even more shocking. She tied the knot with the king of pop just 20 days after finalizing her divorce from her first husband, musician Danny Keough, with whom she had two children, Riley and Benjamin. When Priscilla heard the news, her reaction wasn't exactly celebratory. In fact, she writes in her memoir that when Lisa Marie told her about the marriage plans, her response was a single word. Really? That's it. Just really? With all the skepticism you can imagine, she admits that her lack of enthusiasm was painfully obvious to everyone around her. But it gets even more intense. Priscilla reveals that she was absolutely appalled by the marriage. Those are her exact words, appalled. She writes that she knew in her bones that Michael wasn't marrying Lisa Marie for love. Instead, she believed he was marrying the Presley dynasty itself. In her words, the king of pop was allying himself with the king of rock and roll. She flat out states in the memoir, I didn't believe he loved her. Now, you might be thinking, okay, maybe she was just being an overprotective mom. But Priscilla goes even further. She calls Michael Jackson a manipulative man and claims that he had his sights set on Lisa Marie long before her daughter even realized it. According to Priscilla, the childlike innocence that Michael projected to the public was all part of his carefully constructed mask. It was an act. So why would Michael Jackson want to marry Lisa Marie Presley if not for love? Well, Priscilla had some very specific theories about that. Remember, this marriage happened at a particularly difficult time for Michael. In 1993, just a year before the wedding, he was facing serious child molestation allegations. His reputation was taking a massive hit, and the whole world was watching. Priscilla believes that Michael married Lisa Marie because he desperately needed good publicity that would paint him as a desirable heterosexual man. She writes that he reached out to her daughter during the absolute lowest point of his career, right when these allegations were making headlines everywhere, while Jackson denied all the accusations and was never convicted of any crimes related to those particular charges. Priscilla was convinced he was using her daughter's famous name as a shield, as a way to rehabilitate his public image. She also notes something really telling about Michael's behavior. He was a huge Elvis fan, completely starstruck by the Presley legacy. Priscilla observed that Michael loved being around famous people, loved actors, loved celebrities, and here was his chance to marry into arguably the most famous family in rock and roll history. She was very concerned because her daughter wasn't just famous in her own right, she was the daughter of the most famous man in rock and roll. That Presley name carried weight, and Priscilla suspected Michael knew exactly what he was doing. Here's another fascinating detail. During the entire time Lisa Marie and Michael were married, which lasted less than 2 years, Priscilla says she barely spoke to her son-in-law. In an interview with the Australian radio show Jam Nation, she recalled, "I pretty much said 2 sentences to Michael. 2 sentences, in 2 years, that's how distant they were." She also mentioned that while Michael always spoke to her in that high, childlike voice he was famous for, she overheard him using a completely different, deeper voice when he was at home talking to people who worked for him. She didn't think he ever wanted to lose that little boy persona, even in private. Now, one of the most revealing moments in Priscilla's memoir involves a walk on a beach in Hawaii. Picture this, mother and daughter, walking along the shore, and Lisa Marie opens up about something that's been bothering her. She tells her mom, "I'm really concerned." And this conversation is happening while she's still married to Michael. Priscilla asks her what's wrong, and Lisa Marie drops this bombshell. "I never see him." She explains that Michael is always gone, disappearing for days at a time without telling her where he's going. She'd get a call maybe 3 or 4 days later, but she had no idea where her own husband was or what he was doing. Can you imagine being married to someone who's constantly absent like that? It's heartbreaking, but it gets even more complicated. During one of these conversations, Lisa Marie confides that Michael wants them to have a child together, and Priscilla immediately opposes the idea. She tells her daughter to slow down, to take things carefully. Why? Because Priscilla didn't trust Michael's motives. She suspected that a child would be proof of his virility, a way to further his public image, and she couldn't help wondering if he wanted to have Elvis Presley's grandchild, using the baby as another connection to the legendary Presley name. Then Lisa Marie tells her mother something that Priscilla describes as a big red flag. She says, "Michael says that if I don't want to have a baby, Debbie Rowe will have one with him." Debbie Rowe was one of Michael's nurses, and this was basically him giving Lisa Marie an ultimatum. "Either you give me a baby, or I'll find someone who will." Priscilla writes, "Oh boy, big red flag. Thank God Lisa agreed with me that it was better to wait." And sure enough, after Michael and Lisa Marie divorced in 1996, he married Debbie Rowe and had 2 children with her, Prince and Paris Jackson. He later had a 3rd child, Biggie, through a surrogate. So Michael got what he wanted in the end, just not with Lisa Marie. By the time Lisa Marie filed for divorce on January 18, 1996, less than 2 years after the wedding, she had come to her own conclusions about the marriage. Priscilla writes that her daughter had begun to feel like the whole thing was a setup. Lisa Marie realized that Michael didn't want to be with her as a person. He wanted to be with Elvis Presley's daughter. The title, the legacy, the name, that's what he was after. Priscilla notes that if Michael had truly wanted to be with Lisa Marie, he wouldn't have been gone for most of their marriage. When the divorce was finalized, Priscilla felt a sense of relief that she describes in almost mystical terms. She writes, "I could practically hear Elvis sigh with relief. It's like she believed her late ex-husband, watching from beyond, was finally at peace knowing their daughter was free from what Priscilla saw as a manipulative relationship." Despite all this criticism of Michael, Priscilla does acknowledge that he was incredibly talented and quite smart. She's not denying his genius as a performer. She just maintains that she never really got to know him on a personal level, and what she did observe made her deeply uncomfortable. Now, it's important to note that Lisa Marie herself had complicated feelings about Michael Jackson. In her own posthumous memoir, From Here to the Great Unknown, which was completed by her daughter Riley Keough after Lisa Marie's death in 2023, she reveals that Michael was actually still a virgin when they started dating. She confirmed to her mother that yes, they did have a physical relationship, something many people had questioned at the time. In interviews over the years, Lisa Marie spoke about feeling an intense connection to Michael. In a 2010 interview, she described being around him as making her feel high, unlike anything she'd experienced with another person. She admitted they spent 4 years after their divorce getting back together and breaking up, talking about reuniting and then falling apart again. There was clearly something deep between them, even if it was troubled. She also said that when Michael died in 2009 from acute propofol intoxication at age 50, she was the last person standing over his casket. She didn't want to leave him. In 2014, she told the Sydney Morning Herald that there had been a very deep, strong love between them, describing it as intense, but she also acknowledged that too much happened. Too much got between them, and they couldn't make it work. So you have this really complex picture. Lisa Marie clearly loved Michael in some capacity, but she also came to see what her mother had warned her about. The marriage fell apart because, as both women ultimately concluded, Michael wasn't there for the right reasons. The revelations in Priscilla's memoir don't just stop at her feelings about Michael. She also opens up about some incredibly painful moments in her relationship with Lisa Marie, moments that were directly or indirectly connected to the scrutiny and chaos that surrounded her daughter's life. One particularly heartbreaking episode involved Lisa Marie's fourth husband, Michael Lockwood, with whom she had twin daughters, Harper and Finley. During their bitter divorce proceedings, Lisa Marie asked her mother to sign a deposition claiming that Lockwood was unfit to be around the children, but Priscilla refused. She writes that she couldn't sign it because she had never personally witnessed Lockwood behaving in the harmful ways Lisa Marie was alleging, and to sign would be committing perjury. This decision devastated their relationship. Lisa Marie saw her mother as her last hope to prove her case against Lockwood. When Priscilla refused to back her up in court, Lisa Marie felt betrayed. The courts had already cleared Lockwood of any wrongdoing, and now her own mother wouldn't support her claims. It created a rift between them that Priscilla deeply regrets. The memoir also discusses Lisa Marie's struggles with addiction, which became particularly severe during her breakup with Lockwood. Priscilla reveals that at the height of her drug use, Lisa Marie was taking up to 80 pills a day. 80 pills a day. It's almost impossible to comprehend. Lisa Marie was in a downward spiral and desperately needed professional help, especially after she stepped away from the Church of Scientology. But she retained some of the church's beliefs, including a deep distrust of psychologists and opposition to therapy, which made getting help even harder. Lisa Marie did eventually go to rehab in 2016, and in a 2018 interview on The Today Show, she opened up about her struggles, saying she wasn't happy and that her therapist told her, "You are a miracle. You really are. I don't know how you're still alive." The most devastating tragedy in Priscilla's life came with the death of her grandson, Benjamin Keogh, in July 2020. Benjamin, Lisa Marie's son with Danny Keogh, died by suicide at just 27 years old. The loss shattered the family. Priscilla describes it as one of her biggest fears realized because she knew Lisa Marie adored Benjamin so deeply. She says that when Benjamin passed, a bit of Lisa Marie passed with him. And then, on January 12, 2023, Priscilla lost her only child. Lisa Marie died suddenly from cardiac arrest caused by a small bowel obstruction. She was just 54 years old. The night before her death, Priscilla and Lisa Marie had actually attended a screening of Baz Luhrmann's Elvis biopic together. They had a great evening, making plans for the future. Lisa Marie even mentioned wanting to do something together, but then said her stomach was really hurting. Priscilla told her to do whatever she needed to do. The next day, Priscilla waited for Lisa Marie's call. Instead, she received the devastating news that her daughter was in the hospital and had passed away. To this day, Priscilla says she can't get over it, especially after having such a wonderful night together just hours before. In an interview with People magazine, she called Lisa Marie's death the second saddest day of my life, other than losing Elvis. So where does Priscilla Presley stand today at 80 years old? Well, she's still very much active and reflective about her extraordinary life. She's maintained her relationship with her granddaughter, Riley Keogh, who she describes as amazing and someone she loves to death. Despite the legal battles over Lisa Marie's estate, which Riley now controls as sole trustee as of June 2023, Priscilla insists they're very close. They spend time together regularly, and she admires how Riley has created her own path and is thriving. Priscilla is also focused on her son, Navarone Garibaldi, whom she had with entrepreneur Marco Garibaldi during a long-term relationship after Elvis. Navarone went through his own struggles with drugs, but he's clean now, and Priscilla says she has to be there for him. She has a purpose, a reason to keep going. She remains single and says she's leading a good life with lots of friends. She still thinks about Elvis every day and admits she always loved him and loves him to this very day. She didn't leave him because she stopped loving him. The marriage ended for other reasons, complicated, painful reasons involving his infidelity, drug use, and the life she was living in his shadow. Priscilla has also brought her story to audiences around the world through her stage show, An Evening with Priscilla Presley, where she shares intimate details about her life. She's promoting her new memoir actively, doing interviews, and finally telling her side of stories that have been the subject of speculation for decades. So let's step back and think about what all of this means. Priscilla Presley's revelations about Michael Jackson raise some really important questions about celebrity marriages, public image, and the price of fame. Was Michael Jackson really as calculating as Priscilla suggests? Was he truly manipulative, or was he just a complicated person trying to navigate impossible circumstances? The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Michael Jackson was undoubtedly one of the most talented performers who ever lived, but he was also someone who grew up in the spotlight from childhood, never really experiencing a normal life. He was under constant scrutiny, dealing with incredible pressure, and yes, facing serious allegations that threatened to destroy everything he'd built. It's entirely possible that Michael saw Lisa Marie as a genuine connection, someone who understood what it meant to grow up as music royalty, and also as a strategic move to help his public image. Human motivations are rarely pure and simple. We're complex creatures, and Michael Jackson was one of the most complex people to ever walk this earth. What's clear from Priscilla's account is that she genuinely believed her daughter was being used. Whether she was right or wrong, her maternal instincts were screaming at her that something wasn't right. And in the end, the marriage did fall apart in less than 2 years, with Lisa Marie herself coming to similar conclusions about Michael's true intentions. There are some profound lessons in this story that go beyond celebrity gossip. First, there's the issue of trust. Priscilla Presley has struggled with trust throughout her entire life, and for good reason. Elvis cheated on her multiple times. She's admitted to having an affair herself with Robert Kardashian, Kim Kardashian's father, back in 1975. Trust has been a recurring theme in her relationships, and when it came to Michael Jackson, every instinct told her not to trust him. Second, there's the question of how fame distorts relationships. When you're dealing with people as famous as the Presleys and Michael Jackson, it becomes almost impossible to separate genuine emotion from public image. Everything is performative on some level. Everything has consequences beyond just the two people involved. The marriage wasn't just about Lisa Marie and Michael. It was about two dynasties, two legacies, media empires, and millions of fans around the world watching every move. Third, there's the heartbreaking reality of watching someone you love make choices you disagree with. Priscilla knew Lisa Marie wasn't going to listen to her warnings. She even says in her memoir that Lisa Marie knew she wasn't for the marriage, but Priscilla had to back off because her daughter was in love. Sometimes all you can do as a parent is voice your concerns and then step aside, even when you're terrified of what's going to happen. And finally, there's the lasting impact of loss. Priscilla has now lost both Elvis, the great love of her life, and Lisa Marie, her only child with him. The pain of those losses permeates every page of her new memoir. But she's also found a way to keep going, to honor their memories, and to tell the truth as she saw it, even when that truth is uncomfortable or controversial. Beyond all the drama and the revelations, Priscilla Presley has built an impressive legacy of her own. After Elvis died in 1977, she became instrumental in turning Graceland into a major tourist attraction, which now generates millions of dollars annually and keeps Elvis's memory alive for new generations. She's had a successful acting career, most notably in the Naked Gun film series alongside Leslie Nielsen in the late 80s and early 90s. She's been a businesswoman, a philanthropist, and an author. Her first memoir, Elvis and Me, gave the world an unprecedented look into life with the king of rock and roll. Now, with Softly As I Leave You, she's providing that same level of candor about the decades that followed. She's not holding back. She's not sugarcoating things. And she's not worried about what people think of her opinions. At 80 years old, Priscilla is making it clear that she's lived through too much, seen too much, and lost too much to keep quiet about what she witnessed. Whether you agree with her assessment of Michael Jackson or not, you have to respect the courage it takes to speak this honestly about such a famous and beloved figure.